The sonar operator has been listening to the same Soviet propeller for 6 days. 16 nuclear warheads. Firing solution locked. Direct order from the Pentagon. Do not engage. 1,487 miles off Cape Cod, a Soviet commander holds station at the exact edge of his missile envelope. Washington is precisely within range. An American attack sub sits 4,000 yards behind him, finger on the trigger, waiting for permission that will never come. Because in March 1978, the U.S. Navy discovered something more terrifying than a Soviet missile submarine parking in international waters. They discovered they had no choice but to let it happen. The torpedo tubes were loaded. The firing solution was perfect. One shot ends the threat. But there's a reason that shot was never taken. A reason that turned every assumption about nuclear deterrence into a trap we built for ourselves. This isn't about how close we came to war. It's about the moment we realized the enemy had found a loophole in mutually assured destruction, and firing first would only make it worse. The question isn't what our submarines found in the black water east of Cape Cod. It's why they were ordered to watch a submarine capable of killing millions sit idle and do absolutely nothing to stop it. The submarine's commander stands over the navigation table in the control room of K-219, a Yankee-class ballistic missile submarine. The patrol chart is marked with a rectangular box stretching 1,200 to 1,500 miles east of the continental shelf. His mission is to keep every assigned target within range: Washington, New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Norfolk. The R-27 missiles in his 16 vertical tubes have a maximum range of 1,500 miles. If he drifts farther east, half those cities slip beyond reach and the deterrent mission fails. If he moves closer, he enters shallow water, where American sonar arrays have every advantage. The navigator confirms current position: approximately 1,500 miles from Washington, roughly 1,400 miles from New York. Close enough, but also deep inside the patrol zone, where United States maritime forces hunt him every hour of every day. The commander orders 6 knots and 400 feet depth, slow enough to minimize machinery noise, deep enough that the thermocline layer above might scatter sonar pulses. The reactor coolant pumps hum steadily. The reduction gears turn. The twin propellers, 5-bladed on the Yankee class, cut through cold Atlantic water. Every sound is a signature. The sonar officer reports the thermocline at 320 feet, weak and seasonal. Not enough to hide them. The commander knows the acoustic environment favors the Americans here. Continental shelf waters are shallow. Sound reflects off the ocean floor and travels upward toward the SOSUS hydrophone arrays that line the coast from Newfoundland to Cape Hatteras. Yet the shallow shelf presents its own acoustic challenges: surface scatter and bottom bounce that can mask a careful submarine. In the deep ocean sound channel, SOSUS could track contacts for thousands of miles. Here, in the noise of the shelf, detection is less certain. The mission is strategic deterrence. Soviet doctrine calls it guaranteed retaliation. If the United States launches a surprise nuclear first strike and destroys every land-based ICBM in the Soviet Union, the Yankee-class submarines at sea still carry enough firepower to annihilate the eastern seaboard. 16 missiles, each with a 1-megaton warhead. Launch time from submerged patrol to first impact is 15 minutes. No evacuation, no interception, no second chance. The submarines must remain on station, always within range, always ready. In scenarios like this, the captain reviews the authentication codes locked in the safe. His missile officer has drilled the launch sequence 100 times. The boat is ready. The crew is ready. But readiness means nothing if the Americans know exactly where he is. The sonar officer speaks quietly. Passive contact, 4,000 yards astern. Los Angeles-class attack submarine, matching course and speed. The Americans are not hiding their presence. They are announcing it. The commander steps to the sonar station and listens through the headset. The signature is unmistakable. High-frequency turbine whine. 7-blade propeller. the same contact that picked them up 6 days ago when they crossed the 1,800-mile line. The executive officer suggests evasion, sprint and drift, layer diving, course reversals, standard tactics. The commander shakes his head. Any maneuver that takes them beyond 1,500 miles from the coast pushes half their targets out of missile range. The patrol mission fails. So they hold course, 6 knots, 400 feet, and the American submarine follows. The executive officer pulls up the acoustic chart. Continental shelf depth averages 600 feet, well above the deep water basins that favor submarines. Seasonal thermocline layers here are weak. Sound propagates efficiently to the ocean floor and reflects upward toward the SOSUS arrays. The hydrophone lines run continuously from Newfoundland to Cape Hatteras, overlapping coverage zones. When a Yankee-class boat transits into patrol depth at 6 knots, machinery noise generates acoustic signatures detectable at ranges of 50 to 100 nautical miles. Once detected, an attack submarine is vectored to the contact and begins trailing. Morozov knows the geometry is unwinnable. To maintain deterrent credibility, he must stay close enough to keep targets in range. That same proximity guarantees detection. For 6 days, the American submarine has not broken contact. Not once. The Soviet captain runs through the implications. The Americans know his position within a few hundred yards. They know his depth, his speed, his course. If war begins, they will not need to search for him. They already have him. The attack submarine captain files position reports every 6 hours. Atlantic Fleet Headquarters updates the contact board. The Soviet commander is not invisible. He is a tracked target. The missile officer asks the question no one wants to answer. If we launch, how long before they put torpedoes in the water? The captain does not reply. The answer is minutes. And everyone in the control room knows it. Morozov conducts a quiet drill. He and the missile officer step through the emergency launch sequence. Flood tubes to equalize pressure. Spin up gyroscopes. Align inertial guidance. The crew has practiced this 100 times. Soviet doctrine required readiness within 8 minutes, a demanding standard. The Yankee could fire in salvos of 4 missiles, with technical constraints requiring careful ballasting between launches. The drill is silent. No alarms, no announcements. Just the two of them, working through the checklist in low voices. When they finish, the missile officer logs the time. Within the required window. Acceptable. But Morozov is thinking about a different timeline. The one that begins the moment the Americans detect tube flooding. The missile officer runs the Counterstrike math. When we open the outer doors and flood the tubes, the transient noise is loud. The American SSN trailing us will detect it within seconds. They report to Fleet Headquarters. Authorization to fire comes back within 2 to 3 minutes. They put Mark 48 torpedoes in the water within 5 minutes. We are still launching missiles. The boat is slow, vulnerable. We cannot accelerate to evasion speed until the launch sequence is complete. But the Yankees' technical constraints are unforgiving. The boat can only fire 4 missiles per salvo. Between salvos, it must stabilize, pumping water, adjusting depth. 20 to 35 minutes of exposure, again and again. The officer pauses. We will not have time to dive, turn, or countermeasure. Morozov nods slowly. He knows. The launch datum is fixed. The boat is already dead. Morozov reviews the survivability options. There are none. Even if the boat survives the first torpedo salvo and launches all missiles, the launch position is now fixed. Maritime patrol aircraft will have the coordinates within 10 minutes. The boat's maneuverability is compromised during the tube reset sequence, pumping water back into the launch tubes to maintain trim and buoyancy. Acceleration to 20 knots takes time. The Americans will drop sonobuoys, active sonar, homing torpedoes. There is no realistic evasion scenario. The executive officer understands. The crew understands. They are not a survivable second strike force like the Delta-class boats operating under the Arctic ice. They are a tripwire. A weapon designed to be expended in the first minutes of nuclear war, with no expectation of returning home. The deterrent works only if the enemy believes the missiles will fly. But flying the missiles means the crew dies. The core problem begins with the missile. The R-27 has a maximum range of 1,500 miles. Later Soviet submarine-launched ballistic missiles, the R-29 series carried by Delta-class boats, reach 4,000 miles or more. That difference dictates everything. To cover East Coast target cities, a Yankee-class submarine must patrol within 1,200 to 1,500 miles of the continental shelf. That places the boat in the western Atlantic basin. There is no choice. The mission geometry is fixed by the weapon. Longer range would allow patrols from deep ocean bastions, from Arctic waters under the polar ice, from protected zones where American anti-submarine forces have no advantage. But the R-27 does not have that range, so the boat must come close. And proximity is exposure. Continental shelf waters average 200 to 600 feet deep. Contrast that with deep ocean basins, 12,000 feet or more. In deep water, sound channels form at specific depths where temperature and pressure create horizontal waveguides. Thermal layers bend sonar pulses downward. Pressure gradients refract acoustic energy, while surface and bottom features cause it to scatter. A submarine can hide in the shadow zones between layers. On the continental shelf, those advantages disappear. The ocean floor is close. Sound reflects off the bottom and travels upward. Seasonal thermoclines here are weak, often less than 50 feet thick, and they shift with currents and storms. Sonar propagates efficiently. A submarine transiting at patrol speed generates machinery noise, reactor coolant pumps, reduction gears, propeller cavitation. That noise travels unimpeded to the hydrophones waiting on the seafloor. The Sound Surveillance System, SOSUS, is a line of bottom-mounted hydrophone arrays stretching from Newfoundland to Cape Hatteras. The arrays form overlapping coverage zones. When a submarine transits into the patrol area at 6 knots, the hydrophones pick up the acoustic signature at ranges of 50 to 100 nautical miles, depending on sea state and thermal conditions. The signal is processed at shore stations. Analysts confirm the contact. A Los Angeles-class attack submarine is vectored to the position. The SSN closes to within a few thousand yards and begins passive trailing. From that point forward, the Soviet boat is tracked continuously. Course, speed, depth. Every maneuver is logged. The submarine is no longer hidden. It is a marked target, waiting. A trailing attack submarine maintains passive sonar contact continuously. During a launch sequence, opening the missile tube outer doors and flooding the tubes creates loud transient noise. The SSN detects this within seconds. The contact report goes to fleet headquarters. Under high alert protocols, authorization to fire was expected within 2 to 3 minutes, though some accounts suggest submarine commanders may have held pre-delegated authority to engage. Mark 48 torpedoes enter the water within 5 minutes. The Yankee boat is still launching missiles. All 16 must be away before the boat can accelerate to evasion speed, 20 knots or more. That takes 12 minutes from the first missile. The torpedoes are already running. The launch datum is fixed. The submarine cannot dive fast enough, turn sharply enough, or deploy countermeasures in time. Survivability collapses to near zero. The deterrent requires the missiles to fly, but launching the missiles guarantees the crew does not survive. The commander orders the boat to periscope depth, the scheduled communication window with Northern Fleet headquarters. The antenna extends. He broadcasts a coded status report. Patrol station confirmed. Missile readiness confirmed. Target coordinates verified. According to operational protocols, the transmission would last only seconds, brief bursts designed to avoid detection, though some accounts describe status reports extending up to 90 seconds. The American attack submarine maintains passive contact throughout. No attempt to interfere, no jamming, no aggressive maneuvering. The boat submerges again to 400 feet. The routine is repeated every 72 hours. Both sides know the ritual. The Soviets confirm the deterrent is in place. The Americans confirm they are watching. International waters, legal operations, no shots fired. But everyone knows that if the broadcast ever includes the launch authentication codes, the crew has minutes to live. The American SSN captain reports the Yankees' position to Atlantic Fleet headquarters. The reply comes back within the hour. Maintain trail, take no aggressive action. The Soviet boat is operating in international waters, more than 12 nautical miles from the coast. Any torpedo or ramming would be an act of war. The deterrent paradox holds. The submarine carries weapons aimed at American cities, but it cannot be touched without triggering the nuclear exchange those weapons are designed to prevent. So the trail continues. The SSN matches course and speed, logs position every 6 hours, files contact reports, and waits. The crew knows that if war begins, their orders will change. The Yankee boat will be the first target. But until that moment, the rules of engagement are absolute. Do not fire. In a typical patrol scenario, the commander would receive updated target coordinates and launch authentication codes from fleet headquarters. The codes are logged in the safe. The missile officer runs another silent drill. Target selection, gyroscope spin-up, tube pressurization, launch sequence confirmation. The drill takes 8 minutes. Both crews, Soviet and American, know this is a rehearsal for the real thing. The boat is ready to execute its mission, but execution means certain death. The missiles will fly. The warheads will reach their targets, but the crew will not see the impact. They will be dead before the first warhead detonates. The deterrent works because the enemy believes the threat is credible. But credibility is built on the willingness of the crew to die carrying it out. The patrol continues for another 48 days. The Soviet commander keeps all targets in range, 1,400 to 1,500 miles from the coast, 6 knots, 400 feet. The American attack submarine never breaks contact. Both crews settle into a grinding routine: watch rotations, equipment maintenance, silent drills, sonar sweeps. The deterrent is maintained by mutual agreement not to shoot. Yet both sides know that if that agreement fails, the missiles will fly, and the Yankee boat will be destroyed within minutes of launching. The patrol ends when the relief boat arrives on station. The commander turns east and heads home. The American SSN follows him to the outer limits of the patrol zone, then breaks off. Another Yankee-class submarine moves into the patrol box. The cycle repeats. By the early 1980s, historical accounts suggest that United States Navy intelligence achieved remarkably high success rates in detecting and tracking Yankee-class patrols. Soviet naval leadership reaches the same conclusion. The boats are no longer a survivable second strike force. They are visible, targetable liabilities. If war begins, the tracked submarines will be destroyed in the opening minutes before they can launch or evade. The deterrent logic collapses. A weapon that cannot survive long enough to strike back is not a deterrent. It is a target. Fleet headquarters reviews the patrol reports. The geometry is unwinnable. Short missile range forces proximity. Proximity guarantees detection. Detection eliminates survivability. The Yankee-class mission has failed. Soviet Naval Command begins deploying Delta III and Delta IV class ballistic missile submarines. These boats carry R-29R missiles with a range of 4,000 miles or more. The mission geometry changes completely. Delta-class submarines can patrol from Arctic bastions under the polar ice cap, from protected waters in the Barents Sea and the Sea of Okhotsk. United States SOSUS coverage in those regions is sparse. American attack submarines face hostile acoustic conditions, ice cover, and environmental challenges. The targets in the continental United States remain in range, but the boats gain the survivability that the Yankee class never had. The patrol missions shift north. The close proximity deterrent strategy is abandoned. The Yankee-class fleet is progressively withdrawn from East Coast patrols through the 1980s. Some boats are converted to attack submarine roles, their missile compartments removed and replaced with torpedo storage. Others are decommissioned under the START 1 treaty in the early 1990s. A few are scrapped. One, K219, sinks in the Atlantic in 1986 after a missile tube explosion during patrol, taking 4 crew members with it. By 1995, the entire Yankee-class deterrent mission has ended. The boats that once held station 1,500 miles off Cape Cod are gone. The patrol boxes are empty. The close proximity nuclear threat that defined the Cold War Atlantic for 2 decades disappears. Not because of diplomacy or arms control alone, but because the mission geometry was never survivable. The Yankee patrols forced the United States to build a massive anti-submarine warfare infrastructure. SOSUS arrays, Los Angeles-class attack submarines, P-3 Orion maritime patrol aircraft, sonobuoy networks, acoustic processing centers. That infrastructure dominated the Atlantic for decades and shaped NATO naval strategy throughout the Cold War. The Soviets knew their boats were being tracked. They continued the patrols anyway, because the deterrent required visible presence, even if that presence was compromised. The Americans knew the submarines carried weapons aimed at their cities. They tracked them, but could not touch them without triggering nuclear war. The paradox held. But the infrastructure built to track those submarines outlasted the threat itself. The Yankee-class patrols taught both superpowers a lesson about deterrence. A weapon that exposes itself to destruction cannot be a credible deterrent. Survivability is not optional. It is the foundation of second strike capability. The Soviets learned this and shifted to bastion strategy, protecting their ballistic missile submarines in Arctic waters where they could survive long enough to retaliate. The Americans learned this and invested in quieter, deeper diving boats with longer range missiles, ensuring their deterrent could not be tracked and targeted. The close proximity patrol mission was a strategic dead end. The geometry was unwinnable. Historical accounts and memoirs suggest that many crew members were aware of their vulnerability. The commanders knew it, and eventually, the doctrine changed. Today, the patrol boxes 1,500 miles east of Cape Cod are empty. No Soviet submarines, no Russian submarines. The close proximity nuclear threat that shaped Cold War deterrent strategy for 2 decades is gone. But the lesson remains. Deterrence is not about how much firepower you can deploy. It is about whether that firepower can survive long enough to be used. Soviet commanders and their crews executed their mission with competence and discipline, knowing the geometry was against them from the start. They held station. They maintained readiness. They carried the deterrent forward. But they also carried the knowledge that if the order ever came to launch, they would not survive to see the outcome. The patrol mission succeeded because the missiles never flew. And the mission failed because everyone knew they never could.